Good morning, everyone. Mike and Corey here today on December 11th. And I'm going to talk real quick. I'll give a quick market overview. Things are in the green, so we love to talk about that. But then some other news, Apple tying in closer with ChatGPT and Siri. Maybe you've tried it. I was starting to mess around with it as I got a new phone, but I don't have my Siri set up yet. So going to experiment with that later on today. Also, inflation report came in. Quick summary, it's as expected, which is why the markets are up. And I'll talk just a little bit about inflation, and then Corey's going to talk about some of the merger and acquisitions that are happening in the markets, which is always a healthy thing for big companies to pick up smaller companies and operate more efficiently. But before we get started, I'll remind you this is a financial education presentation. You must do your own due diligence on anything that you hear in this presentation. More disclaimer information can be found on ankerstarwealth.com, and the opinions expressed are mine and Corey's alone. So let me start off. I'll share my screen and you can see the markets. I know the Dow is trading basically break even, but I really don't worry about the Dow because it contains 30 stocks, which may or may not be in a portfolio. I really look at the S&P, which is up 0.66%, and I really look at the NASDAQ, which is up 1.26% today. We love to see that kind of move. This is driven primarily with the inflation report. So actually, I'll hit the inflation report first since I mentioned that. So inflation comes in, it went up by 0.1% month over month. So it's up to 2.7%, which you might like, well, it went up. That's not necessarily a good thing. They were expecting that. And that's really looking at year over year. So last November, it was lower. So they expected it to just go up a tiny bit there. And I'll just show you the graph overall. You can see way back the big old ugly 2022 when it peaked at 9.1%. Inflation is where it was expected to come in at. That's the key. If it comes in too low, which maybe people be happy with that, that could also be the economy slowing too fast. And if it comes in too high, that's never a good thing. But this is what the Fed will be looking at when they make their decision on rate cuts next week. The last time I looked, I want to say it was like a 80 or 90% chance they were going to make a quarter point cut. So that's kind of what's expected.
I think the odds went up this morning.
Did it? I figured it did. You know, if inflation had been high, that would have dropped. But so the expectation is, you know, good news, it'll drop a quarter point. And I know many people out there looking at house refinancing, you're waiting for that to drop, and you know, and it's, you know, it's somewhat dependent on it, but there's a lot more in calculations. So that's the good news. I did see an article in the Wall Street Journal that was kind of the bad side. So coffee prices hit a 47-year-old record. Although when I look at this graph, this is just like a 3-year graph. So coffee prices are way up. And I thought, wow, you know, is this inflation? But what it's really caused by is in Brazil, it's been really hot, dry weather. So there's two things that cause inflation. One is too much money chasing too few products. That's kind of the heart of it. And we'll take the too much money side of it. If we all have too much money, we'll drive the price up. That's the kind of inflation. I mean, nobody wants inflation. I don't think anybody does. But you know, that's one side of it. So that is the demand side of it. The other side is the supply side. So when you had supply disruptions back after COVID, that's part of what caused inflation. And here, hot, dry weather, making coffee trees, you know, not produce the fruit, and that's the supply side. So, you know, I just thought as a person that I actually don't drink much coffee. The last few weeks, I've been trying it a little bit. There you go. And now all of a sudden the price is up. Maybe I'm
It's certainly not my fault.
Yeah, I was gonna say the 4 cups of coffee I've drank over the last month, you know, but I had drank 0 for the previous 10 years, you know, so maybe there's a bunch of people like me and we're driving it up on the demand sides.
How was it? Are you going to switch over?
So you want to talk about advertising having an effect. I'm going to confess. I listened to the Joe Rogan podcast some, and he was hyping this Black Rifle coffee, and my wife was shopping, and I was like, "Hey, I heard Joe Rogan talk about Black Rifle coffee." And she's like, "Oh yeah, they sell it here." I was like, "Can I just try some?" So advertising does work. I was not planning to drink coffee, but based on Joe Rogan, I said, I'm going to try it. And occasionally I go to a coffee shop with some guys. So I said, maybe I can get a little bit of a taste to it. So, I like it. I'm not
Okay.
going to I can't go out and say I'm endorsing Black Rifle because I've tried all the rest of the types of coffee and it's my favorite. I've only tried like one. So sorry, Folgers and whoever else sells coffee, Starbucks. Um, you know, reach out to me, give me some coupons. Maybe I'll try your coffee too, and I'll be one of those influencers, right? So, anyways, that's coffee. Now, here's something I do try a lot. Apple. Apple cell phones. I got my cell phone right here, and Apple launches ChatGPT integration with Siri. I use ChatGPT all the time. I love it. It's a great service. I find all kinds of good uses for it. Now, I haven't tried this integration yet, and this is part of Apple's latest phone release. You get the AI technology. This kind of it starts this cycle where why people would upgrade is because they want to get the latest AI usage. So when I saw this article, I thought that's interesting. Oh, great! I'll certainly try this with ChatGPT. Um, but what's really interesting to me about this is who owns ChatGPT slash OpenAI. OpenAI is the company. It's a privately held company right now. Certainly will IPO sometime in the future, and probably will be the highest IPO I'm guessing that we've ever seen. Um, One of the key owners of it, I did a little bit of research, is Microsoft. So Microsoft, as I found an article where they'd put 10 billion into that company last year. Microsoft has a claim on some of the profits, up to like getting their investment back and then profits after that. So Microsoft is a big, I mean, they don't own the majority of it, but they're a big investor in the company OpenAI that owns ChatGPT, which makes it all the more interesting that Apple, and I don't know, Apple is somewhat of a competitor with Microsoft. I mean, it used to be in the old PC days, it was pure as Apple versus, you want a Mac or you want an IBM, you want that, that competition. But obviously, Apple's a lot about phones, and Microsoft's more about software. Um, but you see this kind of, at least I see this collision course around ChatGPT, which is so far absolutely the leader as far as using that AI. Interesting to see. I just bring that up. Apple and Microsoft are both core holdings within our models. I mean, these are two of the top three biggest companies in the world, with Nvidia being the other one. I don't know who's leading today, but Apple, Microsoft, and Nvidia, and you see they work together, but then they also compete with each other. So yeah, and obviously Google's up there too. So with that, Corey, I will turn it over to you. I don't see any of these, leading into your mergers and acquisitions. None of these companies are going to merge. Certainly, they will acquire other companies. In fact, if anything, the government may try to break them apart because they're, I don't think they're monopolies yet, but they certainly could be. With that, Corey, over to you.
Yeah, Apple's at 3.8 trillion, and there's a lot of. I mean, that 4 trillion is right there. I think they might be back on top for now. Okay, we talked a couple weeks ago. Here it is, that Jersey Mike's Blackstone getting into the sandwich game. Jersey Mike's $8 billion acquisition there. Uh, you're seeing a pickup in merger and acquisition activity. Not all of these negotiations end with a happy story, everyone walking off into the sunset. Earlier this week, Hershey was trading in the low 70s, and you can really see it a little better here. And mid morning on Monday morning, there was some news coming out that Mondelez was in talks to buy Hershey. This actually isn't the first time Mondelez has been in talks. The quote I heard this morning was, as long as there's a Mondelez and a Hershey, Mondelez will want to buy Hershey. This has been going on for a long time, but Hershey has a trust with a majority of the voting shares, and that trust, I don't know what all you know, but they run some things in the community. They run a school. They run all these things, and they're very hesitant to sell. It would have to be the perfect situation. So since Monday, those rumors have died down. Essentially, Hershey said, no, you're not offering enough, and we don't know what the negotiations were. Hershey's kind of turned Mondelez down. Well, your stock went right back down. If you don't think you're worth, 200, then we're sending you back down for now. But Mondelez did the opposite. Mondelez, if you're doing an acquisition, you kind of get, you're going to have to take on some debt. You're going to have to sacrifice your balance sheet to get this through. So Mondelez got sent down, and this morning they announced a dividend hike, a big share buyback, and said, we're just looking for tuck-in acquisitions at this time, and Hershey would certainly not fit that. Hershey would be a big acquisition. One other thing on that particular group of stocks, Mondelez, Hershey, other consumer staples, they've been under pressure by Costco, and we'll actually look at Costco in a minute. But Costco and Walmart have a lot of control over pricing for many different products, and it takes some pricing power away from a Hershey or a Mondelez. So there's actually going to be more incentive for mergers there, so that those companies can kind of up their weight in all those negotiations. And as opposed to fighting kind of a smaller battle, they kind of can consolidate, and they have a bigger spot at the table. This one, Walgreens Boots Alliance this week, I think is yesterday. There's some rumors that a private equity firm was going to acquire them. I think the stock went up 20%. Walgreens has so much debt on the balance sheet. It's really not in a good place. Does this go through or not? The market is fading that sentiment as we speak. Just an interesting one. Kroger at all new 52-week highs, I believe maybe all-time highs today. It's close. But Kroger was going to get merged or be acquired by Albertsons. And that deal was blocked. It fell through. And on the back of that, Albertsons actually sued Kroger this morning. So Kroger's at all-time high. Albertsons, they're getting punished a bit. Let's see, they've been, they're trading at a discount over these recent weeks. So back to where they were before, a couple weeks ago. While Albertsons and Kroger are over there fighting each other, suing each other, what do we see? We see Costco, the cream of the crop, just hit $1,000 a share this morning, and they couldn't care less about what the other regional players are arguing about. So all-time high, of course. Just interesting. We think in 2025 there's going to be more of that. So where there's smoke, there's fire, right?
And some of what causes more of that in 2025 will be continued less expensive money. So as the Fed lowers rates, interest rates come down, to do a buyout, you usually have to finance a big chunk of it. So guess what? When money's cheaper, you're more tempted to buy other things and you do that financing. And of course, when I think about Hershey, and I was aware of that trust, I think I read about that years and years ago, that they really very unlikely they ever could be acquired because of that money that sits in a trust. And I always think to myself, I rarely would go out and buy chocolate. I just have to count on my kids at Halloween to get enough chocolate in storage here for me. And when I had all five being little, I had so much chocolate. Now I don't want you to think that I would take my kids' favorite candies. There's plenty they don't like that they're just like, Dad, Harry, do you want these almond joys? We don't like these. And I'd be like, yeah, let me have a couple. And they'd put like 50 of them out there for me. And then, Corey mentioned that's when, you go overweight,
Oh, are you
so
overweight Hershey?
I was overweight almond joy in my diet, so which caused me to go overweight anyway. So I always said that the two worst things for healthy eating for me was Halloween and Girl Scout cookie delivery day. Those 2 days, that was like the end of every healthy eating plan I had. So, anyways, that's all we've got today. We'll talk to you later. Let's hopefully this market continues in the green, and we'll have a good one. Bye.